In a nation obsessed with motorsports, Demolition Derby is the one Americans won't admit to loving.
I think everybody, just by human nature, has a fascination with crashing cars.
Tonight, 40 of the sport's toughest drivers take the wheel, with the West Coast's top prize up for grabs. And they'll do anything to win.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying to win.
You will find plated metal in there somewhere.
The goal, to be the last car running. Step inside the arena and learn what it takes to survive the metallic firestorm that is Demolition Derby.
The worst kind of hit you can take is one you don't see coming.
Across the country, in Cowtown Coliseums, Demolition Derby draws capacity crowds. The smell of exhaust fumes and the sound of crunching metal fuel the excitement.
You got a problem?
Here, high-tech and low-tech collide to create a battering ram on wheels. Where modern-day gladiators replace horses with horsepower. And gentlemen's agreements with pure attitude.
You know that's right. You know that.
I just like hitting people. That's it. I like knocking somebody over in the seat. The adrenaline rush.
The winner isn't decided by the most points or the fastest time, but by annihilating opponents into submission. Only the last car running takes the prize.
I mean, you fight to the finish, and last man standing wins.
Demolition Derby has no governing body. It's the Wild West of motorsports. In the Northern California farming community of Colusa, Derby promoter Jeff James is putting up $11,000 to find a driver who can slam, beat, and batter his way to victory.
All right, you finally hit somebody, thank God. Usually the best of the best show up here for this show, and when the flag drops, it's no holds barred.
It's the Pacific Regional Championships of the Extreme Demolition Derby League. In this hotbed of Derby, the $11,000 purse has every driver in the region counting the days until Colusa.
At this Colusa Derby this year in California, we're going to have the best of the best. Everybody's going to be there that I know.
Mike Doyle is one of those guys. He repairs water mains for a living, but wrecks cars for pleasure. 69 titles under his belt, Doyle is one of California's most decorated and feared drivers.
When I show up to a derby, they know that I come prepared and I bring a car that is a tough car to beat.
Even with all of Doyle's success, there are some who question the means by which he's achieved it.
I guess the reputation for Mike Doyle in a lot of ways is people feel he's probably one of the biggest cheaters around.
Doyle's just like a known cheater. He's a guy that'll cheat his car, it'll be right in front of your face, and he'll deny it.
There's no mercy, no mercy. Every time somebody does good, the other guys that lose say, oh, he must have cheated.
I ain't got nothing against him personal-wise, but once they drop that flag, he's mine.
With 6 weeks to go, Doyle searches for his next winning car. This isn't NASCAR. He needs new wheels for every derby. He's been up and down these back roads 100 times looking for his favorite, the Chevy station wagon. And when he spots one, he pounces on it.
And what were you looking for?
Telling a stranger that their family wagon is going to be smashed to bits can be a hard sell. But to Mike, it's just business.
No, I don't want to say I feel bad because it's just a car, you know, just metal, but I try to avoid answering a direct question of exactly what I'm going to use it for if I don't have to.
How about 350?
I'm not lying exactly. I just don't tell them we're going to wreck it. You got a deal.
Thank you.
120 miles to the north in Red Bluff, California, Byron Wilkes is combing his local wrecking yard for his own championship meal ticket.
This is an old Dodge Dart station wagon.
He's looking for what the rest of us can't see, a car with so much steel, it forms a virtual fortress around its engine. Cars from Detroit's glory years, when passenger cars weighed as much as 5,000 pounds. That's 1,000 pounds heavier than today's average car.
Wow.
It doesn't have to run. Wilkes manages the local tire shop and can fix anything. He needs a heavy car because in Demolition Derby, weight equals strength. He normally runs in smaller derbies. The upcoming Pacific Championship in Calusa is a big step up.
The cars that we run around here, sometimes you can get 3 or 4 derbies out of them. That same particular car in this event coming up, it'll be a pile, just a smoldering heap. That's kind of worrisome to me.
Crashing these big cars at 35 miles an hour is like driving your car off a 4-story building. But for these guys, it's not about physics, it's about adrenaline. The average derby heat lasts about 10 minutes, and in that time, they push their cars to the limit.
Even if you're in that heat for 10, 20 minutes, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
The sport hasn't strayed much from its inception in the 50s. Larry Mendelson, owner of New York's Islip Speedway, is often credited with holding some of the first derbies. During typical car races, he noticed that fans cheered loudest when the cars crashed. So he decided to hold events where there were nothing but crashes. Last car running wins.
I think everybody, just by human nature, has a fascination with crashing cars. It kind of gets into your blood. You almost can't help yourself.
Demolition fever swept the nation, and today, there are over 5,000 derbies coast to coast each year.
Smashing cars, lots of good times. What is there not to like?
Back in Red Bluff, Wilkes has found his ride, a 1964 Chrysler 300. In the 5 weeks before a derby, this garage is ground zero for a mechanical transformation. He'll completely gut the car to its metal core. He'll strip down the mechanics to the bare essentials so that any problem can be immediately diagnosed and repaired. He'll raise the suspension to keep cars from getting above his bumpers, and he'll reinforce the body to get the car to collapse in just the right spots. When he's done, this car will bend but refuse to break. A 35-mile-an-hour crash test is a good gauge of what plays out inside the Derby arena hundreds of times a night. It's why drivers strip apart the exterior. They remove chrome trim and emblems, glass headlights and taillights, even door handles. If left in place, they could become high-speed weapons.
All that chrome trim flying around, that stuff is sharp and will cut you fast. You will bleed, there's no doubt about it.
They even break off their mirrors. If someone's behind them, they'll see it over their shoulder and pound them backward at full throttle. 2 hours up I-5 from Mike Doyle, the Bambauer brothers are hot on his trail. Louis, 22, and Scott, 19, are considered two of the sport's fastest rising stars. Scott won the Pacific Championship last year. Their family owns a wrecking yard, so they have access to over 400 cars at any given time. These guys were born to derby.
Having a business like this gives us such an advantage. I mean, we kind of lucked out in that end. We can go out and test drive our cars.
We usually go out there and hit anything in the little boneyard we have out there. A bunch of guys out here on the weekend and have some fun.
They know exactly where to hit the other car to do the most damage with the fewest impacts, so they can preserve their own car longer.
We're going to employ the same strategy here in Calusa. We're going to try and wipe out front suspension since that's one of the weakest spots on the cars. Ended up caving the whole fender in and everything like that. This right here, he'd be out. He's not going to be moving around at all. It kind of screws him up.
As if this punishment weren't enough, demolition derby drivers must cope with very real fire danger. But many of these guys don't wear fire suits, so a 2100-degree fuel fire could bake the skin right off them.
2 fires, you're out. Fires in Demolition Derby definitely play a role. A lot of times you're gonna start breaking fuel lines, and on a hot exhaust, it's just gonna go up. But, you know, everyone enjoys a good barbecue every once in a while.
Everything flammable must go. Door panels, interior trim, headliner and carpet. Burned here, not during a derby. There's nothing delicate about the process. And Doyle's not afraid to use his body as a tool. After 15 to 20 hours of stripping the car, the only thing that goes back inside is a single driver's seat. The feeling of vulnerability can be intense.
When you pull out the lineup, you're looking for your mother. Or your wife. Because you're down there alone inside this car. It's a pretty lonely feeling.
So there's been some times where you get stuck on a cement barrier and they take turns on you, 1, 2, 3. And your butt cheeks quiver. I tell you what, it's a lot funner to pound.
Coming up, drivers turn up the heat and reveal how bending the rules is just part of the game.
All these guys that are going to this derby, we're all cheaters. Don't let them lie to you.
Thrill Zone, tonight at 8, only on the National Geographic Channel. Brought to you by Mitsubishi, driven to thrill.
The Extreme Demolition Derby League's Pacific Championship is swiftly approaching, and Byron Wilkes has stripped down his '64 Chrysler 300 inside and out. 3 weeks out, the real transformation begins. He starts by removing the front fenders, then getting rid of any unnecessary metal that could knock into vital parts, like his cooling system or his tires.
This is just more fluff that we need to remove, give clearance for the tires. It's just going to make contact with everything inside the vehicle. So with that said, let's cut.
Wilkes' tool of choice is a plasma cutter. This device uses an electrical current to superheat condensed air. The extreme heat, up to 30,000 degrees, vaporizes steel. Surprisingly, the holes he's cutting in the hood are for his exhaust system. Passenger cars have mufflers and exhaust pipes located underneath. Derby drivers relocate exhaust headers through the hood to direct heat away from the underbelly of the car. This keeps moving parts from overheating. Next is the suspension. It's a prime target of opposing drivers because without it, a car can't steer. These leaf springs are an integral part of the suspension because they hold the car's rear end off the ground.
If you're too high or too low, you're either going to go over the top of somebody, you're going to go underneath of somebody when you're hitting.
Adding more leaves will get the car's bumpers higher.
I think this will give us what we want. We got 5 leaves in there. We got 8 here. I think this is going to do it. I do believe it will.
Inside the arena, drivers know to go after opponents' tires. A flat tire, or even no tire, means a car can't get up enough speed to inflict damage. So drivers replace their stock 4-ply tires with heavier-duty truck tires, or even forklift tires. These can have up to 16 layers. A wheel like this is virtually impossible to flatten.
This is a forklift tire right here. I ran this on a car last year, and you can see the impact I took right here. It ruined this wheel, but this tire's so tough with the tube in it, there's still air in that tire. I'd put it back on a car and run it again.
But tough tires aren't enough. This is exactly what Wilkes is trying to avoid. He's pounding the fenders up, away from the tires, so they're less likely to rub against the tires and slow him down. It's not the only time he'll purposely thrash his car. These drivers know where to weaken the car's frame to their advantage, so they can take the hits and keep on pounding.
Right now, what we're looking for is the weak spot on the frame rail. Every demolition car has a weak spot, and I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna put a notch in it.
The notch will get the rear end of the car to bend upward on impact. If it were to bend down, it would drag in the dirt and lift the wheels off the ground, completely immobilizing the car. Learning tricks like these takes time, and experienced drivers like the Holt brothers know them all. 1,400 pounds between them, they go by the nickname Fat Boys Incorporated, or FBI. A crease across the trunk is another method that helps the car bend in just the right direction.
That makes them so they'll kink over and be a battering ram, basically. Makes them tough.
They remove the regular fuel tank and replace it with a smaller one. Then relocate it to the interior, directly behind the driver's seat. They take the battery from under the hood and move it to the floor of the passenger seat. They tightly secure each to the floor away from direct impacts.
If you were to leave it in a stock location in the front and you were to get hit by another car and have battery acid all over the ground and possibly spraying on you.
The most important safety precaution of all is the steel cage each driver constructs inside his vehicle. One bar runs the length of each front door, while two sturdy crossbeams are welded horizontally. These beams will keep the car's structure intact and its driver alive. Even so, the #1 rule in demolition derby is no crashing into the driver's side door.
Dude, pay attention! Sorry.
They also install safety bars where there used to be a windshield. Without them, an opposing car could come right through and crush the driver.
I don't think a Mack truck can come through this.
They also weld their doors completely shut. It can take up to 3 hours per door. And when Wilkes is finished, the body of his Chrysler 300 will be one solid piece of metal. But strong body or not, you can't have a tough car without a tough frame. And in this sport, you want a full-frame car. That's what Detroit turned out before the 1980s. The body was completely separate from the frame. Today's cars are built with unibody construction. The body and the frame are actually all one piece. So in a collision, one shot to any part of the unibody car bends the frame, the suspension, everything. Drivers will do anything to make sure their car's frame is as strong as possible, even if it means artificially reinforcing it. Highly illegal in demolition derby.
Guys like to take steel and cram them down the frame rails. Weld up the holes in the frame, pump the frame full of cement. There's just a few things you can do.
Cheating is the most highly charged word in demolition derby. Each promoter has a specific set of rules drivers must follow when building their cars, or risk being disqualified.
Well, cheating is a very touchy situation. They send out a set of rules, and you're to take those rules and interpret them. So it's kind of like a guidelines on how to build a car.
I guess I just haven't fallen that far to cheat. I'm having fun. The money doesn't matter to me, and I believe that's where the people start cheating at, is the money.
All these guys that are going to this derby, we're all cheaters. Don't let them lie to you.
At many events, the real showdown often comes after the derby.
Oh, come on, man, I'm telling them!
Where accusations of cheating fly, and sometimes it can get out of control.
You will find plated metal in there somewhere.
Listen, in demolition derby, there's been so many fights, I can't even count them on two hands.
He never hit the brake. Full throttle, no brake.
I mean, I even was at a race one time in Iowa where they actually pulled their chainsaws out of their truck and were gonna cut down the announcer's booth.
Unbelievable.
Up next, Wilk's transmission goes on the blink, and tempers start to redline.
This one ain't turning. How about the other one? I don't know. Something's bound up in the f***ing linkage.
Thrill Zone is brought to you by Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Demolition Derby is more than just an excuse to crash cars legally. Those respected in the sport know just what it takes to win an event like the Pacific Championship in Colusa, California.
In order to be successful at Derby, you have to be three things. You have to be a driver, because if you can't drive the car, then you're not going to go very far. You need to be a mechanic, because if the car doesn't run, it doesn't matter how good of a driver you are, and then you have to be a welder to make the car hold together.
It takes about 70 hours to build a Derby car. These guys have to know the weaknesses of their cars and how to remedy them.
God dang.
They need to know the strongest parts of every other car so they can seek those parts out at wrecking yards, then cobble them together for maximum strength.
Get her done.
I saw people just went out there and wrecked cars, you know, and then after doing it for about 10 years and getting whooped on, and realized there's a lot more to it than just go out wrecking cars.
Mike Doyle is considered one of the best drivers in the game, and he's ready to load the engine into his '72 Chevy wagon. He'll actually relocate his engine 4 inches back to give it a bigger buffer from the punishing blows to the car's front end. If a car hit him in the front like this, the radiator would stop short of his fan, keeping the radiator from getting shredded.
When the fan hits the radiator, from that point on, you know in your head that you're on a time limit. Because once your motor runs out of water, at that point you know, oh boy.
When a radiator gets taken out, there's no way for the engine to get the water it needs to keep it cool. Oil starts boiling. Metal pistons start to expand inside their cylinders, and it's only a matter of time before it's game over. So Wilkes takes a different approach by removing the fan entirely. Now, there's nothing dangerous for the radiator to bump into. But without a fan, there's nothing to cool his engine. The motor needs to be in perfect working order to withstand such abuse. And he figures it's a lot easier to test it outside the car before hoisting all 600 pounds of engine back under the hood.
Is that cool or what?
Doyle's not worried about his engine starting. This motor is Derby tested and reusable. To a Derby driver, a car is just a shell used to shield the engine for one Derby only. What the sport boils down to is keeping that engine protected longer than the other guy.
Good to go.
The $11,000 Pacific Championship is just days away, and Wilkes is loading his engine back in.
It's on. Is it?
Today's the day he wants to test drive his '64 Chrysler. But first, he has some transmission work. He starts by torching a hole in the floorboard so he can hook a simple shifter directly to the transmission.
We've torched a hole through the floorboard to run this shifter. A lot easier to handle for a demolition car. Straight forward, straight back.
With his shifter in place, it's almost time for the all-important test drive.
Were those rear wheels spinning?
But things aren't going as planned. No matter how much he guns the engine, his tires are barely moving.
For once, you had it spinning really good.
But it's going forward when it should be going backwards. You guys understand?
What the oh, mother. I don't know. Something's bound up in the linkage.
After hours of trying to identify the problem, he isolates the trouble to his transmission.
It won't go in reverse, and the front wheels don't seem to be really with the program. And then the throttle cable just broke.
Without a usable transmission, there'll be no Derby for him.
I'm not happy.
Who did the transition?
The green flag is going to drop here in a few days, and I got to get going. Usually I'm well prepared.
There's no such drama at Doyle's. The test drive of his Chevy wagon goes off without a hitch. And all that's left is the paint job.
When people see number 70 with Mike Doyle behind it, they usually have a keen eye on me to pay attention to me very much, because they know that usually my equipment runs pretty good and I usually bring a pretty good car.
At 1:30 a.m., it's all hands on deck in Wilkes' garage. He's found the tiny culprit that put his transmission on the blink. A valve that controls the amount of fluid going to the transmission.
This control valve here is supposed to be the new one. And you can see the garbage on it. This means we aren't going anywhere until we get a new transmission. It wouldn't be uncommon to work on a car for 24 hours straight. Yeah, it's not uncommon to go from sun up to sundown, and when the sun comes back up, you know you're in trouble.
They worked all night. The final solution, putting in an entirely different transmission. His crew went home to sleep. Wilkes, he couldn't wait to take the car for a spin.
I'm definitely for sure that this car will be in Colusa. We will have it ready to go. I think it'll be a contender.
Up next, it's winner take all.
In the arena, when you're nose up to each other, your friendship's out the door.
Ready to go!
Byron Wilkes has put in 5 weeks' worth of hard work on his '64 Chrysler 300. Now, Derby Day is finally here.
Morning. Every time I head off to a demolition derby, I get some anxiety pains in me. You know, the stomach does the weird stuff. I expect to have fun, regardless of what happens. We're ready to roll.
Derby veteran Mike Doyle uses the drive to Colusa as time to plot how he'll take out his opponents. The basics: take out tires and suspensions to limit your opponent's speed. Take out their steering so they can't control their car.
Oh, wow! Steering wheel broke off!
And finally, go for the radiator so their engine overheats.
Every shot that I pick and choose, I want to make sure I do more damage on the other car than myself. I try to choose a shot that will definitely help me out better.
He knows every car he's facing inside and out, and their vulnerable spots. Mercury's weak front suspension. Ford Galaxies, take out their steering boxes. Lincoln Continentals, their trunks fold like a cheap suit.
Every car has a weakness, every car. And you have to know, and it's so many years you figure it out, and you know, it comes second nature now. And all the drivers that are going there tomorrow night, they know. Everybody knows.
Tonight's Derby purse of 11 grand has attracted many hardcore drivers. Plus, the winner of this Pacific Region Championship will go on to the XDDL's National Championship. The 40 cars will be divided up into 4 qualifying heats.
Everyone has to use the same car to run in the main event. That's where the money's at. The main event, it goes down to last one running wins. Well, I'll tell you what, man, you're gonna see some metal up in this place tonight.
In the pits, it's inspection time. The head official hoists up the cars on a forklift so he can check for illegal modifications.
I use my fiber optic scope to go inside the frame. You can hide it, but it ain't hiding nothing from me. Yeah, how about just on the underside, just reach in and trim it.
Once the driver passes inspection, he gets a colored flag that indicates which of the 4 heats he'll drive in. After that, they can't touch their cars until race time. But these guys will need more than just a tough car tonight to be a contender. Though highly illegal, they'll often team up just to gain that extra edge.
Rules state there's no teaming. Yeah, right, it happens.
You pick on the same car, take turns hitting them and boxing him in the corner, maybe holding him while another driver goes back and tries to take his front wheel off.
These alliances are sometimes formed only minutes before a heat.
I'm gonna watch him.
For the Fat Boys, that alliance is forged in blood. These four have the Bambauers in their crosshairs.
They know that when we're there, we're going to hold our own, and they're going to be in for their work.
Yeah, there ain't
The Bambauers know we're coming.
And they're not the only ones who want a piece of the Bambauers.
They just think they're cocky. They just think they're God's gift to Derbian. And I tell them when I see them, I want to hit you, straight up. And I'll help them push their car out there just so I can hit them.
Back at the inspection line, Mike Doyle has drawn his heat.
Heat number 3.
And given Doyle's reputation, promoter Jeff James is personally inspecting the number 70 car,
You're a smart man. You built that correct. That's exactly the way I wanted you to do that.
All righty.
which passes with flying colors. It's just minutes before the Derby, and Jeff James sets things straight with a mandatory driver's meeting.
We're to just do this one time real quick and let's get racing, man.
Here, he warns people against teaming up and hitting opponents in the driver's side door.
And if you don't, I'm gonna warn you once and I'm gonna throw you out twice, okay?
The playing field in this sport is no place for an official, but this is one guy intent on letting everyone know who's boss.
You got a problem? You better start hitting somebody.
For me, I actually carry a big aluminum baseball bat because inside these cars, you realize everything's taken out of them, so they're really hollow. So I can smack on the top of their car with them. Clearly, it's like hitting on a 50-gallon drum, so it gets their attention quick. Yo, let's roll with this. Hey, listen, first heat guys, get in your cars right now. We're going.
Byron Wilkes is in heat number 1. He knows he has something to prove, and he's anxious to do it. The cars line up around the perimeter of the arena, and it's driver's choice which end of his car faces the middle. Wilkes comes out swinging with a big back-end hit. He's taken on some bumper damage, but Wilkes is ready to lay down some more hurt. He gets in a good side door hit, but then the number 40 car of Scott Bambauer deals Wilkes a stiff shot. And then, disaster.
My negative battery cable snapped.
A back-end collision snaps Wilkes' battery cable. With no way to repair the cable on the fly, he can't restart his car. It's a disappointing early exit for Wilkes, who now has nothing but a front row seat. The first heat plays out as many had predicted. Scott Bambauer going after Doug Holt, the lone fat boy in this heat. And without a doubt, Bambauer's 63 Imperial is dominating. When only 4 cars are still running, Jeff James declares the heat over and passes the survivors directly through to the main event. For Scott Bambauer, he's barely worked up a sweat.
Decent right now.
Wilkes, on the other hand, is seeing red.
That clown pinned me in out there. Did you see that? After the event was over, he fired his car up and drove away. I think that's What do I do?
Coming up, Mike Doyle takes his shot at the title. But in Demolition Derby, what goes around comes around.
Next.
Negative battery cable snapped.
For Byron Wilkes, the Pacific Regional Championship in Colusa, California, is the toughest derby he's ever entered. He didn't do well enough in his heat to qualify for the main event, but if he can repair his battery cable, he'll be able to run in the consolation heat. That will be his last chance to make it to the main event.
You know what I need? I need that other battery in here. That would keep that one from moving.
Back in the arena, odds-on favorite Mike Doyle is gearing up for career victory number 70, the same as the number on his car. Ever the crafty veteran, Doyle lurks in the shadows, letting other cars take each other out. And then, Doyle smells blood. For Doyle, it's all going as planned. But little does he know, Brandon Holt of the Fat Boys has been watching him the whole time. He lets down his guard for a split second, and now his number 70 car is going to pay. It's only the second time in 25 years Doyle's been rolled. And at this derby, it means he's out of the heat.
Back over.
Got a drive room done.
Now, all he can do is watch from the sidelines.
Usually you just push car back over and we go. I was ready to go.
The rollover has cost Mike Doyle an automatic spot in the main event. He too will have to run in the consolation, and he's not happy with the ruling.
Stupid rules.
Mike Doyle is so upset right now because he didn't qualify and he got rolled over. Cut me a break, Mike Doyle.
Both Wilkes and Doyle will run in the consolation heat, their last chance to make it to the main event. It's open to any driver who can get his car running by the time the green flag drops. And it starts off with a bang. With nothing to lose, underdog Wilkes puts the pedal to the metal, looking for anyone or anything he can hit. Doyle just needs to save face. He didn't come to Colusa for the experience, and the competition is feeling his wrath. The four most aggressive cars from this consolation heat will be invited to the main event, so Wilkes goes for broke with an all-out full arena shot. The collision puts Wilkes' car out of commission, but it's enough to get him into the main event along with Mike Doyle.
Yeah, made it. Just got to change out a U-joint, fix my battery cable again, we're on our way.
The drivers have just 20 minutes to get their cars ready for the main event. For Doyle, who's not used to having to run a consolation heat, the extra battering is taking its toll.
God, I don't know what to do.
And when he checks out the car's frame, it's even worse.
Yeah, I've never had a frame bend quite like this. Oh, yeah, we're in trouble.
Two of the Fat Boys, Dave and Brandon, have made it through to the main event, along with their closest ally, Moon Mullins.
I'll give her all she's got. If I blow her up, I don't care.
As for the Bambauers, they brought all the resources of the family business to Calusa. For Wilkes, just making it to the main event is a victory.
We're good. Got a little water issues in the radiator, but we're going.
We're going to the last man standing.
Thousands of dollars and the title of Pacific Region Champ. This is what the best in the West came out for. From the beginning, it's clear that the Bambauer brothers are going after Doyle. He's the biggest threat to them. So better to take him down now while their cars are still fresh. A virtual unknown, Wilkes had no allies coming into this event. And he didn't come here to make friends. But his aggressive style costs him. The big front-end collision bends his distributor shaft, cutting off his power. He's a sitting duck now, but he doesn't realize it until it's too late.
I forgot to put my seatbelt on.
20 cars started this main event, but within 10 minutes, the field is cut in half, and Doyle's '72 Chevy wagon is also starting to fade. With no allies left, Doyle is a metallic punching bag.
That's it, boys, we're done.
Scott Bambauer's '63 Chrysler Imperial refuses to die. It looks like he'll repeat as Pacific Region champion. All he has to do is deliver the death blow to the number 25 car. Bambauer's is the last car running. He's won the main event. The officials hoist up his car for all to see. It's a Derby tradition, but at Calusa, it's ignited a powder keg.
Go look at the other Imperials. They've been right there. They did it on purpose. They know what they're doing.
The other drivers don't like the unconventional way Scott Bambauer welded his bumper to his car's frame.
Bumper brackets don't go on top of the frame.
That's right, but it doesn't say in the rules they have to run vertical. I used ingenuity and thought. I mean, Derby's all kind of about ingenuity. Who has the better ideas of building a car?
For promoter Jeff James, it's just another day at the office.
That's why I'm not here running this Derby, because of this.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy, man, as far as that goes. These guys are going to snibble all night, and I understand it, and I'm just mad at these guys, and they cry that they're not going to come back, but they always come back, you know what I mean?
Mike Doyle's 7th place finish is not what he had in mind, but he's a gentleman in defeat.
All I can give is 100%. I got hit. I hit back what I could. I'm going to go shake everybody's hand when it's over, congratulate them, try to load up my tin can here. Maybe we'll drink a few beers together, and that'll be it.
For Byron Wilkes, just getting to Calusa was the prize.
It's been a wonderful night. I really enjoyed myself. Didn't take home the big money or the big trophy, but my trophy's right here is this car. I love it. I might do it again next year. Don't tell the wife.
Woo! Demolition Derby is as American as the automobile itself. And though it may not grab headlines in the sporting world, there's no denying the passion and the know-how it takes to triumph in this mechanical cage match.
Well, there's not much money in this sport, but I do it for the pure adrenaline rush. And where else can you go out and wreck cars and not get in trouble?